Are y'all ready to head off the trails? I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm ready to take you on an incredible journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do, because we would love to have you. Shout out to Bumblefoot for that great intro music. You can follow us at Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. You can find me at thecryptidhuntress.com, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Cryptid Huntress. Visit my shop, War Woman Goods. You guys can find that on Etsy and on my website. Okay, I have an incredible guest here tonight. I have my friend Bettina Moss in the studio tonight, but don't forget that right after the show, After Hours has a great program set up for you guys. So y'all don't miss it, okay? Let's get to our guest. Bettina Moss has always been open-minded when it comes to all things paranormal. She's had an interest in cryptids since she was a teenager, but all she knew about was the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot from watching shows like Sightings and seeing articles in the National Enquirer on creatures such as Bigfoot. Years later, she began watching documentaries and videos and listening to podcasts where eyewitnesses shared their encounters and experiences with Bigfoot. One day, she came across shows about Dogman, which sparked her interest, and she never imagined that she would ever have her very own encounter. Bettina started her own group to reach out to other eyewitnesses. Her YouTube channel is Cryptonormal Encounters with B. Moss, and I have the incredible Bettina Moss here with me tonight. So let's welcome her to Spaced Out Radio. Hey, Bettina.
Hey, how are you doing? Jessica, thank you so much for having me on your show tonight.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here. I am so excited. I've been looking forward to this all week. Okay. Because I have been really into Dogman lately. And it's just something that's coming up more often than not. Okay. And you are one person that I know. I know several people who have had firsthand encounters with Dogman. And your story is incredible, Bettina.
Oh,
and I'm just so glad you're here tonight. You know, I know we run with the same crowds online. Okay.
Yeah. We do, because it's like everybody's like all intertwined to some degree, like we're all kind of intermingled.
We are, but hey, I think it's an elite group, man. There's a lot of really good people, and by elite, I mean like the cream of the crop with the Dogman research, okay, and Sasquatch research.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great information out there, and I was absolutely blown away by your interview that you did last night with Martin Groves, who's had a firsthand experience at the LBL.
Yes, yeah. That interview, I'm going to say that one, the interview with Lance Hightower, and several others. I mean, there's plenty of them. I mean, people don't realize I have more than just the 22 shows that are on the channel right now. I started out doing my interviews in the group, and so I think I have like 37 in the group, so it's about almost 60 shows in total. But I started doing it there, and then I ended up moving over to YouTube. Josh Turner put my name out there a lot when he did my interview in 3 parts, and because you get into so many different areas when you're talking about cryptids, your eyewitness encounters, theories about what they are, sightings, and so when you get into it, it's really deep, it's really big, and I really enjoyed interviewing Martin Groves last night because his encounter was so mind-boggling. It was so terrifying. It's one of those encounters that has you on the edge of your seat. It makes all the hair on your arms stick up. It was that terrifying. Hearing it in person and last night, it's just very interesting, and it tells a lot to what we're going through today as far as listening to eyewitness encounters and the cover-ups that happen as a result.
Oh my gosh, we're going to get into all that tonight. Okay. And I cannot wait to talk about all this because I actually have done a lot of research into the beast of LBL, and I've remote viewed that. And it's really scary. But Bettina, I would like for our audience to hear about your personal experience tonight, because I know a lot of my audience has not heard your story before, and it makes the hairs on my arms stand up. Okay.
Okay.
So give us a little taste of what happened to you with your encounter.
Okay, so it was 20. So I already knew about Dogman already before I had a Dogman encounter. I started out believing in Bigfoot, the Loch Ness monster, all kind of paranormal sightings that people had for years. I used to watch shows like Monster Quest, sightings that came on back in the day. They used to have a pamphlet or a booklet that would come out back in the day, and it was the National Enquirer, and they used to show stuff about alien abductions and Bigfoot, and it was always kind of like a mockumentary type magazine, or you know what I'm saying. So
Oh
it
yeah.
wasn't to be taken seriously, but I always knew that there was other stuff out there, and I just didn't feel like all these people that have videos or eyewitness encounters and sightings. I just didn't think that they were making that up. So when I started listening to Bigfoot encounters several years ago, on those shows like that, Unsolved Mysteries, and several different cryptid shows on YouTube, like Dogman Encounters, Brenton Sawin's channel, plenty of them. I basically listened to that, and I never thought I'd have my own encounter. But then in 2013, every year for hunting season, my husband would go hunting, and so sometimes he could be gone for 3 or 4 days. And when he would be gone, instead of just sitting and bored at the house for 3 or 4 days, I just elected at that time to go and spend the weekend with my parents. They lived like about 45 minutes away from where we lived, and it was a natural thing. I always went to visit them every weekend anyway, but I never expected to see a dog man.
I
Now,
don't think anybody's ready to see a dog man or expecting it.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
So
totally crazy.
when your house is set up, like they're in their neighborhood, you pull off the main road, like off Elm Street, and turn into their neighborhood. And when you turn into their neighborhood, there's their house is in a cul-de-sac. It's like a dead end of the neighborhood. So if you're turning into their neighborhood to go out to the rest of the houses, not being a dead end, you would turn left, and there's the rest of the houses out there. But on the end of the road that they lived on, it's a cul-de-sac, and their house, their backyard is bordered by the woods, which there's a trail that leads directly into the woods.
Mm.
Their driveway, they had like a three-car driveway, which was at an incline. There two of them were two of their vehicles were parked under the lattice driveway, which is at an incline, and then my dad's truck is on the other side of that, on the outside that's uncovered. But whenever I would go over there, there was no room for me to park, so I always had to park down on the road, below under a tree on the street. So my car is like still on. I hadn't cut it off. The headlights are still on, facing the wood line directly behind their house. And yeah, hey Rob, I see Bigfoot Mission Rob.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
Mia
pulled
Mar's in the house.
when I pulled up next to that curb that night, like it was like any other night, but because I already knew about Dogman and Bigfoot and creepy things in the woods, that night I decided
Yeah,
I'm not just gonna get out of the car and just go. You know, I want to make sure I gather everything that can be gathered into my purse from the front seat, like or off the passenger floor. I'm gonna put that in my purse now. So when I get out, all I've got to do is go around to the
yeah,
back door on the passenger side and get my suitcase out and roll up the hill. Thank
and
God
make a
I did.
run for it. Yeah,
Yes, because there was no street lights on
yeah.
that end of the road, and the woods is directly behind their house. It's really dark back there. So what I did was, like, I drive a Cadillac CTS, and if
Mhm.
anybody knows that those cars, the headlights are garbage. So the low beams are on, so there's not much light, shining straight ahead, but the car's still on. And so I'm looking straight ahead, and that's after I got through gathering everything out of my purse or putting everything into it so I can get out and get up, to their house as soon as possible. But when I got to where I'd gathered everything, I looked straight ahead, and I just stopped and I said, I know that's not what I think it is. Because I see something that's jet black standing in that pathway, like it's got its back to me. It's tall, it's black, but I didn't want to like make too much out of it, and I didn't want to be one of those people that's like, okay, that's definitely a dog man, because you
Yeah.
listen to so much of this stuff, you're like, I don't want my mind to run away with me. So I'm looking, and so at that point I said, let me just turn on my high beams. When I turned on my high beams, I know I'm smiling about it now, and sometimes I'm one of those people, like, you have to smile or laugh to keep from crying, because it was crazy, because I couldn't
That's
believe
me
it.
every day. Yeah.
Really.
I gotta laugh to keep from crying. Oh yeah, every day.
Yes. So I put the high beams on this thing, and like I said, its back is to me. It's standing on 2 feet. I put my high beams on, and when I put my high beams on this creature, basically I'm looking at a dog man, jet black, anywhere between 8 to maybe 8.5, 9 feet tall. It didn't have
Wow.
that typical German Shepherd type head, or like I like to call it, Anubis. I do have pictures of
Mhm.
one that looks like a German Shepherd or Anubis, but
Yeah.
that's not the one I saw, and that's the one that is
Something
most
like
often,
that kind of.
that yeah, it wasn't that type, but I do have pictures of that type. I have seen
Hmm.
those after the first encounter. So
Hmm.
yes, that is not the type I saw that night. That
Yeah.
night, put the high beams on. When I put the high beams on, I'm looking straight ahead, and I see a dog man standing on 2 feet. It's got its back to me. When I put the high beams on, it went from having its back to me to turning around and looking. It didn't just look at the car, it looked straight into the windshield, looked straight into my eyes. And we had eye contact, Jessica, for like 8 to 10 seconds. And at
Wow.
this moment, my mind is thinking, please, God, don't let that thing walk over here, because if it walks
Mm.
over here, then this will be one of those times that it opens the door. Because I'd heard several times, like on several encounters, where people say that they can open car doors and they can open doors to houses and go in. So I'm thinking, please don't let this thing walk over here, because sometimes my automatic doors wouldn't lock. So as I'm thinking this, and I've said in the last few years, I didn't write all this down at the time, so I don't remember if I said that out loud or if I thought that in my head.
Hmm.
But if I could say, as far as telepathic speaking is concerned, or mind speaking is concerned, this will probably be one of the one and only times that I can say that this actually probably happened, was because when
Yeah.
I said that, what I heard back in my head was, "Oh, it's just you, no big deal."
Familiarity right there.
Yeah,
That
like it knew
it's
who
like
I
it knew
was.
you. Yeah.
So
That's it's not shocking though. A lot of these I do Bigfoot field research, and a lot of times we they know we're coming before we get there into the woods, okay? And me having a whole team of remote viewers, we're able, some of our team can communicate with some of these things, and they know when we're coming out there. Now it makes me feel like this creature, this being, uh knew you maybe from when you were a kid or something. Who knows?
I feel like that was a possibility, because my parents moved in
Yeah.
that house, and I'll explain it to y'all in just a second and give y'all a great a description of the details of what it looked like, what I was looking at that night. And just so y'all understand that that was just my first sighting or encounter. I have had many more after that. Now, what it looked like, and I'll go back to what Jessica was saying in a second, where she felt like maybe it knew me, and I felt like that too after I went back and thought about it after the fact. But what I saw when I put those high beams on it, I saw a dog man. It had that upper body that she just showed you, of a muscular dog man. It didn't have that German Shepherd head, but it had that muscular upper body, the upper torso, the pecs. It had all that, the six pack. It had the tapered waist. Um, yeah, it had that upper body like that, very muscular. The pecs, the abs. It had the muscular arms and upper body. It had, but instead of that head, and I do have one, a picture and a video of one like that I do actually have, and it's a really good picture of that without it being snarling like that. But I have one like that.
Oh.
But the head of the one that I saw that night looked more like a black Rottweiler or pit bull broad type of head, with a shorter snout, but a protruding snout, but it's shorter. It wasn't long like the German Shepherd type. It didn't have
Wow.
the tall, pointy ears that stick straight up. It had more of the cropped type ears. It did have the hawk style legs, that they talk about, like the dog type legs. You know what I'm talking about? They call them
Oh
the
yeah.
backward legs. It had those legs. I don't remember if it had a tail or not. What stood out to me, that's the legs like we're talking about right now, what she's
Hmm.
showing on the screen. It didn't have the amber eyes that most people talk about. The one I saw had these really blue, turquoise blue, luminescent, so glowing from within, blue eyes.
Wow.
And
Like a
it said,
husky something, it
yeah,
sounds like.
like
Yeah.
well, those the blue eye
Or a
color
pit
of
bull. Yeah.
no, not even like that. Just because the eye color was more, those beautiful tropical island turquoise blue ocean water color, that really pretty ocean color, turquoise
Oh
blue.
yeah.
The
Yes.
eyes were that color, but
Oh,
luminescent, glowing.
wow.
That's
Wow.
the invisible tracker. Yeah, the eye color was blue, and a beautiful blue, almost like, Jessica. If you see that blue down there where it says you're in the show, on this screen, like that turquoise blue that's at the bottom down here on
Oh yeah.
StreamYard. That's the color of
Yes.
the eyes.
Wow.
Now, when he
Indigo.
said, yeah,
Yeah.
when it said it's just you, no big deal. The next thing it did, like I said, it was an eye contact for 8 to 10 seconds with this thing. It stared into my eyes. I looked at it. It looked at me, and I'm thinking, I'm just looking. I got a tears rolling down my eyes because I felt like, oh my God, I cannot believe. I was shocked. I was amazed. I was fearful. I was overwhelmed all at one time because you know how you see something like that, and I already knew about them, so it wasn't like, what am I looking at right now? But for all intents and purposes, I'm looking at a werewolf. You know,
Yeah.
from Van Helsing or every other scary movie that you've ever seen. And it's like it's here right now, like in Limestone County, Alabama, in real time, and you're looking at it. And you also get in this mood where it's like, who am I that I'm actually looking at this? And this thing actually showed itself to me at this time. But what I think what happened, I don't was trying to show itself to me. I think that right as I had pulled up, I think that it just came down or just came out from where it usually perches at night. It just came out of that tree and it was headed to go down further into the woods. But I think that since that's the cul-de-sac, that's the end of the neighborhood, I believe that most people who pull into the neighborhood are going down where the rest of the houses are. They're not coming to that end of the neighborhood. There's only a few houses down there. So this thing was not expecting somebody to pull up dead center and spotlight it. As long as the lights were on that low beam, it just stood still and said, "Okay, they'll cut the headlights off in a minute." But when I put the high beams
Yeah.
on, I feel like it probably thought, "Oh, I'm spotlighted now. Let me just turn around and see who spotlighted me." But yeah,
Yeah.
my parents moved in that house in like 1985, so I was like 5 years old when I moved in there. So either this thing had been there all those years, or it was there at some point later on, but it knew who I was. And I do think
Yeah.
that I actually saw that one at least a couple of years later after that. So, but there's been several other sightings on that property after that day. So when I had that sighting that night after it said it's just you, no big deal, the thing basically casually turned its back and it continued to walk on 2 feet further down into the woods down that path. And I just sat there and watched. And at that moment, I'm like, I'm not getting out of this car to go in the house. I called inside the house and I tried to get my
Yeah.
dad to come, like, Daddy, please, can you come out here? Something out here. Daddy was like, oh, come on, you're listening to too many of them Dogman and stuff. Like, they think it's ridiculous. So they're like, well, no, you're grown. Come on in this house. Ain't nothing gonna hurt you. Daddy wouldn't come open the door. I called my nephew. He's in the house. He came out there and walked me in. So there was no way I was getting out of that car at that moment to walk into that house at all.
That's a brave nephew. I'd be proud of him.
That same nephew had a sighting a couple of years later after that.
Oh
And
wow.
I had to, at that point, I was still married. I had to send my ex husband, well, he was my husband at the time. I had to send him out there that night because my nephew parked a little bit further closer to that wood line than I was parked that night.
Hmm.
He got off from work at McDonald's. It was midnight. He's sitting out there in his car, like texting. You know, he's 16, 17 years old. He's texting on his phone, just without a care in the world. His car doors probably weren't even locked. And then I guess he looks up and he sees a dog man, which was more like the one that you showed before. The one he saw was that German Shepherd type, like what you showed at the
Yeah.
beginning. The one he saw was like that. He called. He said, he called inside the house. He called my cell phone. Tina, come outside. I said, what's wrong, Keyshawn? He said, there's a dog man out here right now. And I said, are you serious? And I know, I swear to God, like y'all, I'm not lying. I can laugh about it now because it wasn't funny at the time. I wasn't laughing then, but now I laugh about it because it's like, I can't believe I saw that. It's ridiculous. I just can't even wrap my brain around it.
It's like you were
So,
paying him back. Like he came out to save
yeah,
you, and then you went out to go save him. Okay, or
yeah.
to walk you in. I
Well,
love
that
that.
night, the nephew said, Tina, please. He said, it's out. I said, what are you talking about? He said, it's a dog man. I said, what is it doing? He said, it's just standing there looking at me. And I shouldn't have been asking all these questions at the time. Like, I should have just went straight out right away. But I already knew because I'd already had my encounter. So it was never a doubt in my mind that he was lying or anything like that. But that particular night, my husband was there at the house that night, staying at my parents' house too, because where he was going to be hunting at was right there in that area. So
Mhm.
instead of me going out there, because I know where my nephew's parked at, he's parked closer to that trail, and I'm like, mm-mm. I said, can you go out there and get Keyshawn out of the car? I said, please, he's terrified. He's 16 years old. He's crying. He's bawling. I'm like, what's wrong? He said, it's out here. I said, what does it look like? He said, it's like black. He said, it's standing on 2 feet. He said, it's got the pointy ears. He's got a long snout. And it's just standing there looking at me. And then he told me it was walking off. But I sent my ex-husband out there to go out and walk him in the house. And then, of course, I got a good tongue lashing because of it. So you put these things in these kids' heads, and they think he did see it. You don't, okay. I'm at that point. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna try, because when you got family and friends and stuff like that, and they don't believe it, you can't make them believe. And I don't even try to anymore. And for the most part, if they're not people within the group or on the channel or who already believe in cryptids, I don't even like to discuss it with people, because to most people, it sounds ridiculous. So I don't even try.
It does. Listen. I feel you. I've been seeing Bigfoots and ghosts and aliens since I was a kid. Okay, so I understand. Now, you said your dad had never. It was kind of like, oh, it's whatever. Had anyone in your family ever seen one of these before, other than you and your nephew? Is anybody else or anybody in the neighborhood?
Nobody in the neighborhood had ever talked to me about it. Later on, my parents moved out of that house in 2019. And when they moved away, I did try to show them pictures at times on their property, because that was the ones I told you about, my first encounter. But there was several other sightings, encounters, and audio that I also captured from those dogmen that were on that property over the span of 2013 to 2019. So no, they never did. They tried to tell me at one point. They said, what did they tell me? They said one picture I showed them was of the one I called the German Shepherd Anubis Dogman. Mm-hmm. And at first, when they saw it, they was like, oh, they both looked at it. They didn't know what to make of it. And then they came up with this stupid rationalization. My mom was like, well, it might be a coyote, and it's on all fours, and then the coyote.
A really tall coyote.
But another one was standing on top of its back. I said, Mama, that's like 7 feet tall. When was the last time you saw a coyote's head that was that big? And when was the last time you saw a jet black coyote?
Well, our rational minds want to make sense of what we're looking at. And so it's really, people, well, they're going to see what they want to see. And their brains are going to compute it by what they already know. And so, that's why, as a Bigfoot researcher and having a team, my big thing is like making sure that everybody's got a very open mind, okay, as to the possibilities of what we're going to encounter out in the woods, because we just don't know. I mean, I can understand. I mean, look, the state of the world today, nobody wants anything outside their little reality box. Okay. A lot of people don't, because we've already got enough stuff to worry about. Okay. So I can understand where your parents are coming from. Yeah.
Well, I just thought it was ridiculous. Now, they lived on that property all those years. And when I started the group, or when I first started listening to Bigfoot and Dogman encounters before I ever had my own encounter, I was listening to it for the same reason that other people were as well. I was listening to it for, Rob is crazy.
See, go ahead and put that comment up there. I was about to laugh. I was laughing at that too.
No, Rob, I'm not in a silk robe. I'm in a orange and purple and white multicolored calico-like shirt. Hilarious.
Rob, she's dressed up tonight. Come on, Rob.
Right.
Okay. And she has sparkling water in a crystal glass. Okay.
Thank you.
That's what we're all there. Look, I've got my mason jar here with my water in it.
So oh my gosh. When it comes down to it, it's just I just felt like I started it for entertainment purposes. That when it was entertaining, listening to the stories. But then when you have more and more encounters coming through, more sightings coming through, more information being gathered, different stories, different aspects of it, where you have some people who talk about them having the ability to cloak, which is like, I like to call, there's several different ways that they cloak. One of the ways I've seen them cloak in real time was what I like to call the predator effect, because it looks like, if y'all have seen the movie Predator, it's that water, or I don't know, you know what I'm talking about? It almost looks like a mirage. Yeah. You can still see the outline of it, but it's still
I've seen it.
See the camera. I've seen them look like a fog or a mist, like where It's almost like they're trying to put a veil or a force field before their face so that you won't see their face. But then behind that force field, you can still see its features. You can still see the snout. You can still see the eyes. All of that. That's one way. Another way that they cloak is that they are able to, just like a chameleon or a tree frog, or some of those octopus that live underwater, that are able to blend perfectly in with the sand and the underbrush
Hmm.
growth underneath the ocean. They're able to do that too, to the point where sometimes they look, you can't differentiate them from a tree. They look
Yeah.
that much like it. So
Oh yeah.
there's several different, and then there's times when you will see them on camera or on pictures, if you take pictures and you get really good shots of them, where you'll see maybe the head, neck, shoulders, the upper body, and then below that you won't see the rest of the body, where you should be seeing the waist. If there's an opening in the trees or the leaves, where's the waist? Where's the legs? Where's that is just not there. So you have to come up with that point. Is this interdimensional? Is this, there's different beliefs in it, flesh and blood. It's so many different areas you can go with it. Nephilim,
Yeah.
alien species. So I've come up with my own theories and beliefs for what I think as far as they're concerned. I'm not 100% on it. It's just based on what I've gathered, based on audio that I've gathered, video and
Hmm.
pictures from what I've seen. And I've come to my own conclusions about what they are.
What
I
do you
might be
think?
wrong, but
Yeah.
I think that they are I think that they are what is spoken of as Nephilim. I believe that
Hmm.
there were different variations of Nephilim. I believe that there were, if people aren't familiar with Nephilim are, that was the fallen angels, of the Christian belief, fallen angels that came down and had sex with human women. Those ones that
Yeah.
came down and had sex with human women, the result of that were giant people. Now, when the Bible talked about the flood came, and it said that the animals and the people and the giants, everybody had corrupted their way on the earth. And I used to wonder, well, how did the animals? Why did the animals need to be wiped out too? Well, the Book of Enoch goes into greater detail and says that basically those animals, some of them were defiled by those fallen angels as well. So if you have the human result, or cross human, cross fallen angel, um, mixture, and that is a giant human, then what do you think you're going to get if you have a fallen angel mixed with a wolf
Yeah. With an
or
animal. Yeah.
that's a dogman, or a wolf, or a serpent, a lizard, or something like that, reptilian. The cross between a fallen angel and a goat, you're going to have a goat man. And then if you look back at ancient mythology, Greek mythology, where it talks about the satyr, or the minotaur, cyclops, the giants, it speaks of all these things. And then if you go into the giants alone, it goes into talking about, in Numbers 13 and 33, when Moses sent those spies over to spy out the land, the promised land that God had given to them. The people that came back and gave him a report told him there were giants over there. We were as grasshoppers in their sight, and also in our own sight as well. So when you look
Yeah.
at that, the Bible, or Greek mythology, or Sumerian, literature, all those ancient texts, they were not just only telling you things. I don't, in my mind, I don't think they were only just telling you things that they thought, or they were just making depictions of people wearing masks. That might have been the case in some cases, but I do seriously believe that they were depicting things that they actually saw in those days. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't realize the Smithsonian has covered up the fact there's recordings, there's records that go all the way back to the 17 and 1800s of giant skeletons and skulls that have been found right here in the United States.
Oh
There's a lot
yeah.
of that people
Yeah.
don't know that's going on right here in our own world. People don't know that there's more pyramids in the Americas than there are over in Egypt right now. So
Yeah.
it's
We
a
have
lot of
pyramids
stuff.
in Georgia. We have one up in North Georgia. It was a
Really?
Mayan pyramid. Yeah. So yeah, I mean this listen, there's so much ancient history here that we've kind of been lied to, or let's just say lied to by omission. Okay.
Oh
uh
yeah.
yeah, about our real history. And yes, giants did roam this earth. And I see that with my remote viewing data, all the remote viewing targets that I do.
Well, you
Yeah.
remember, Jessica, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the giants of Lovelock Cave.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yes,
do
I
you
looked into
remember that?
those.
Well, do you remember that they were red-haired giants?
I do, yeah. Just like
And
the
the name,
giant of Kandahar. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, it makes me wonder the red-haired giants of Lovelock Cave. I wonder were they. I sometimes wonder were they completely covered with red hair, or was it just the hair on their head? Because the
Yeah.
Native American cultures, they often talk about the Sasquatch people, the fact that they came in and took women and children a lot of times. So you've got to wonder about that. It's several different things. The giant of Kandahar, when they talked about it, they said it had 6 fingers and 6 toes. They said it was like 1,500 pounds. I mean, it was so many double rows of teeth. Then
Yeah.
you have several different aspects of that, and then it's like, okay, well then, if you take it back to the Bible, then the Bible said they had 6 fingers, 6 toes. I mean, you've got all these
That's
different
right.
things, and you've got the skeletons and stuff that's brought up. There's a lot of things that people don't realize that's really going on out there, that's really going on in our universe. And I think that these things have always been here. I don't think that Anubis was that was somebody wearing a mask. I don't think that people need to realize. And what I have a hard time, I'm a Christian, and I have a hard time trying to understand sometimes why Christians or my parents or even church people have a hard time believing in these things, because you think about it, like for the ones who are not Christians, and they maybe look at it as, well, your book is a book of fairy tales or mythological creatures, because the
Right.
Bible talks several times about dragons. All throughout the Bible, especially like in the book of Revelations and a few other books. Now, if you look at that, then you go back to Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl, and you have like the native tribes talking about that, and that was referred to as the plumed serpent, and plumed means feathered, flying serpent.
Yeah.
So is that a flying serpent, not a dragon, or is that not a pterodactyl? I'm just saying that there's several different things there, and then the book of Isaiah talks about the satyr. Well, why would it bring up the satyr? That's a half man, half goat. Is that not what we call goat man today?
And those things are reported all over the country right now, and so are pterosaurs, which are like pterodactyls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're they're all over the place right now. And now, Bettina, something else that I've been getting a lot of are requests to remote view mysterious deaths all over the world. Okay,
Yes.
I have a friend who lives in Scotland, and she sent me a remote viewing target, and she said that there was a woman who had recently she had called in to her car had gotten a flat tire, I believe, and so she called in for help, like a AAA or something, and she called, and when the help got there to her car, she was gone, and they couldn't find her anywhere, and they traveled about a mile down the road and found her half-eaten body in a field, and her body parts have been ripped off. Okay,
Where was
and
this? Because I think I've heard of
Scott
this. Where was?
Scotland. I believe it was in Scotland. It was somewhere in Europe, but yeah. And so things like this, and I'm getting more and more of these reports, and people asking me to look into them, and they're all dog attacks, packs of wild
Mm-hmm.
dogs. Okay, now I've never seen a pack of wild dogs roaming around killing people. Okay, doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying it's a little odd, Bettina, and so I know that on your show you've done a lot of interviews with people who have firsthand knowledge of dog man attacks, and a lot of times these are blamed on packs of wild dogs. So
Yes.
I thought maybe we could talk about that tonight because it's pretty prevalent right now, and we hear a lot of
Absolutely.
stories in the news about wild dog attacks, on elderly people and just random people. Um, I,
We
you know,
absolutely can.
should we be
Just
looking out for wild dogs, packs of wild dogs, or what do you think?
well, I'm gonna put it to you like this: on these wild dog cases and situations, what needs to be brought up, which they are going to do the best they can to cover it up, because for whatever reason they don't want people to understand and know that these things are actually real, and I'm not saying that all dog man or Bigfoot, but we're talking about dog man in this case. I'm not saying that there's just those in my encounters. I'm not saying they weren't, but I know that during the sightings encounters I had, they didn't do anything. They stood from a safe distance and watched. But what I will say is that when it comes to it being reported back as a dog attack, then you need to look at the other factors concerning that case. Is the person who is a witness in that case, are they being discredited? Why does their history need to be brought up, like in the Amber Miller and Tony Ernst case? Why do those
Yeah.
members need to be drugged through the mud by the media? It's almost like they're trying to take away from people's. It's almost like they want to take away the interest, or the main fact of what people really need to be asking is, no, what really attacked those people? Because Cobb County, Tennessee last year, and let me see, April of 2021, Tony Arns was found on Jimtown Road. Jeff Nadoni covered this story extensively for about 6 to 9 months. And a few other people covered it also. Now, when he covered this case, Tony Arns was killed on that road. And when Tony Arns was killed, I don't know, from what I read off the autopsy report, it had that he was a homeless man. And it basically brought up like maybe some drug habits and some other things. But what it went into was saying that his neighbor saw him outside at the mailbox around 6 o'clock. At 9 o'clock that night, 3 hours later, he was found partially eaten. How are you partially eaten in 3 hours? When was the last time, even if it was a pack of wild dogs, when was the last time a pack of wild dogs, they attack somebody, once they're dead, they're not sticking around to eat. I mean, maybe if it's,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's not the case. If they're starving, then they probably would. But you don't see that very often. And just riding around the countryside, how often do you see a pack of wild dogs even running together? It's just not even something
Yeah.
that you see commonly. Number one. Number two, the other factors that didn't make sense. So that's 2021 in Cobb County, Tennessee, with Tony Arns in April. Then fast forward to June or July, I can't remember what month now, June or July of 2021, on that same road, Amber Miller, and I think she was 28 years old, was found with both of her arms ripped out at the socket, at the shoulder socket, where it was only muscle and tendons holding her arms in place. At the hospital, they said that there were so many wounds and lacerations found on her body that at the hospital they lost count of how many wounds.
Wow.
Now, looking at the autopsy report, the largest bite mark that I found on her body was like 15 inches, and it said it wrapped around from the front hip area around to the upper left hip, front of the hip and stomach area, around to the upper hip. Like you just wrap that around the body, all the way around to the upper buttock and upper thigh area. That's a big mouth for a 15-inch bite.
That would
The
be like a
last,
grizzly bear, okay, or some kind of huge bear.
or even bigger than that, because it wrapped around from her hip, from the front all the way around to the upper buttock area of the, like an upper thigh, like it wrapped around. 40. She
Wow.
was missing
Yeah.
42% of her flesh.
Good grief.
That's actually in the autopsy report. And then
Yeah.
when you go with that, and then it goes into all the other lacerations, then when they tried to blame that on dogs, but the interesting part about it was that they blamed it on wild dogs, but then the dogs that were found in the scene, that they said there were dogs in the scene found licking her wounds. None of those dogs were put down. None, no flesh or anything was found in their stomachs. And to this day, that is still an open case. Well, why is it an open case if the dogs that you say that killed her, or if it was dogs, and you claim to know which dogs did this, then why is it still an open case? The reason it's still an open case is because when it's an open case, you are not allowed. They don't have to tell you anything. It's an open case. We can't talk about it. The doctor who
Yeah.
attended her at the scene of her being attacked, she lived. Amber Miller did not die that day. She, I think, lived for about a week after that until her organs finally ended up shutting down. But she did, according to Martin, the guest I had on last night, she was able to tell the doctor what actually had happened to her, what attacked her, and that doctor was put under a gag order by the judge not to talk
By a
about it.
judge.
By
I
a
mean,
judge.
this is showing a network of, I mean, I'm not saying there I don't know the case. I don't know, there could be more involved and I'm just not aware of it, but it sounds sus, as my son says. Okay, sus. Very suspicious, Bettina.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not normal, because when you want to cover that up, then you have to, there's too many different issues with it. There's different law enforcement officials, there's different military officials, that you have judges, you have
Yeah.
lawyers, you have people who've been hunters out in the woods all their lives. There's several different credible witnesses. like Martin, the guest that was on my show last night, he was a retired police officer. He was a sheriff at the time when this happened, and the powers that be, this whoever this agency that came in, once the incident was reported, there was a guy who he had actually met out there who I think was a firefighter, but he was also out there, and I think he was bow hunting. But that man ended up killed that night. And Martin believes he was the last person to ever seen that man alive.
That was the bow hunter at the Land Between the Lakes. Now what
Yes,
Bettina is referring to, everybody, is Martin Groves. Okay, he actually was brave enough to get up and talk at the Dogman conference that Josh Turner threw in Paris, Tennessee recently. Bettina was there, and Martin Groves is actually a sheriff's. He was a sheriff, right, or a sheriff's deputy,
yes,
and he had his own encounter at the LBL, which is the Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky. And he and his hunting partner were out hunting, and he believes he's the last person that saw the bow hunter who was allegedly killed by a dogman. Okay, in the LBL, he saw him the night before he died, or the night that he did die, and that was, I believe, that was the same night that he claims that he and his hunting partner were attacked by dogmen and potentially Sasquatch as well. It's
absolutely.
fascinating. Yeah.
And there's a guy who's come forward, Roger Jeff. Josh has interviewed him on his show. I think Elijah Henderson has had him on his show. A few people have had Roger from the LBL who come out all these years later after the LBL attacks. And he said he was there at the time when this happened. He showed up in the comments last night, and he's wanting to tell some of his encounters as well, as far as what happened that night while he was there.
Yeah, this is Renee in the chat. This is a friend of mine. Yes, he's very knowledgeable when it comes to wolves and animals and things that you can hunt. Okay.
What's
So
interesting, Jessica,
yeah,
I remember years ago when we were kids, and I don't know if they taught y'all this at school, but at one point they said coyotes and dogs can't mate. I remember that was something that they used to say
yeah.
back. And do you remember that? Did you ever hear that too?
I have heard that. Yeah, I did hear
But
that when
that
I was
wasn't the
growing up.
case because coyotes and dogs can mate. Like my grandma had a coyote that actually had pups with the dog that was there. They just tell you stuff, and I don't know if at that point in time they just hadn't done research on it. But a lot of stuff happens that people don't even realize. It's a lot. Um, Somebody
All
had
right, Mark.
mentioned.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. All right, Mark. You know this is Cryptoville. He knows the LBL. Okay, if
But
anybody
it
knows
is,
the
you
LBL,
know.
it's this guy. Okay, right here. So, all right.
Hmm.
Thanks for being here tonight. By the way, Cryptoville. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Bettina. I didn't mean to interrupt. I got a laugh out of that one.
Well, the LBL is like a hotspot for
Yeah.
dogmen and Cryptidville. I'm gonna have matter of Cryptidville. I'm not gonna let this go tonight. I told you last night, and I didn't do it tonight. After I get off the phone, after I get off this interview with Jessica, we're gonna talk because Barton wants me to have you on. Martin, everybody wants me to have you on. So now you're gonna have to come out of hiding. He
You
didn't want
better
to
go
talk
on her
to
show, and then you're gonna come on my show next.
because he's got
Yeah.
the real deal information. The LBL cases, y'all, are terrifying. And if
Yeah.
y'all have not ever heard of the Beast of the Land Between the Lakes, look up any interview on YouTube. Several different researchers have covered that. Family of four went camping. Wasn't this in the 80s, Jessica?
It was 1982, I believe. I actually remote viewed it, and I got way more than I bargained for because I was looking for a family of four that was attacked and mauled to death. I didn't even know if it was real, but it was absolutely real. It happened, and not only did I pick up on that one, I picked up on multiple attacks and maulings and deaths. There were a lot of deaths there, and there continue to be to this day. So, me being a mom, me being someone who likes to go hiking and go in the woods and our national parks, it's very upsetting to me knowing, because I was also seeing a big government cover up. Okay, with all of this, and the park rangers and the people that work there are aware of all this that's going on, and it's very upsetting as a parent and as someone who goes to national parks and state parks, that there's a cover up when they're allowing us to take our kids into these places and to go camping, and It's almost like these beasts are being let loose to go feed, okay,
Well,
on
it's still
people.
disturbing because it
It
makes you
is.
wonder why are they not letting people know about this. Um,
Yeah.
Real quick, Jessica, do you see that comment by Andrew and Gnome's Trucking Express? He said,
Yes. Which one? The
the,
truckers?
yeah, he said, Andrew and Gnome's Trucking Express, the only reason why the 6-year-old
Oh, let me go back up. I must
at,
have missed it.
at 9:44 p.m.
Oh, that's
because
way up. Okay.
he said the
Yeah,
only
I'll
reason why
find
the
it.
6-year-old girl was found was a park ranger friend said, "Hey, you got something dripping on the brim of your hat."
Oh,
He took
yeah.
off the hat, looked up into the tree, and it was blood. So the blood from the little girl, like they. So basically, for y'all that haven't heard the LBL story, basically it was a family of four: mother, father, a son, and a daughter. And the father and son were killed on the outside of the RV, viciously killed. The um, Dogman was able to get into the RV where the mother and the daughter were, and
And she put
according
up
to
a fight, a
she put
big
up a
fight,
fight.
to stop it from getting to her and her daughter after it had killed
Hmm.
her son and the husband. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think Jody Cook said she had basically fought that thing like tooth and nail, like she had fought it down to the bones of her
Her
fingers.
her bones were hanging out of her fingertips. Yeah.
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 Now that was scary. Now they didn't even know that there was another child in there. They found the mother's body. They said when they got inside the RV, they said like it was the worst massacre, like just looking like a bordello of blood in there, like blood was everywhere, flesh. And then they went further back into the RV, and when they got back there, that's where they found little girl's clothing. And then that's when they realized that there's not a little girl in there. So they went out looking for the little girl. And on his comment where there was blood dripping down his hat, when they went further out into the woods, they were just standing a few officers, law officers talking and stuff like that. State troopers standing there under the tree, blood's dripping down on his hat. And the friend said, "Hey, you got something dripping on your hat." When he looked at it, there's blood dripping down. The little girl's body is found 30 feet up a tree, draped over a branch, and she had been partially
Yeah.
eaten.
She
So
had
there's
been
a lot
eaten.
of these
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah, I can confirm that a lot of that did happen, and yes, there was a body found that was elevated up into a tree, I guess. Yeah, and I saw that with my remote viewing data. Okay, I wasn't there; I just saw it remote viewing. So and that leads us to something that's really interesting, Bettina, is that with the North American Dogman project, a lot of the people involved in this project are former law enforcement and military. Okay, a lot of the people on my teams that go out and we do the Bigfoot field research, they are law enforcement, military, EMTs, firefighters, police officers, and DOD
Yes.
people, and government workers. I used to work in the government actually myself on a state level, but
Oh
it's
wow.
interesting. I mean, even one of my someone who was like family to me, Bob Wilson. He used to be the Region 5 director of the NADP, and he was in the Navy and a search and rescue guy and law enforcement for most of his life. DA Roberts, Nick Valente. I mean, who else we got? Jody
Yes.
Cook. Okay, they're all law
Yes.
enforcement, and so it makes you wonder. It puts it out there. And also Martin Groves, the man that you interviewed last night,
Absolutely.
he's law enforcement. So if you were to go and ask a lot of law enforcement people, about werewolf reports, that come into the 911 center, I bet you're
Hmm.
going to hear some stories, right, Bettina? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I would assume.
Well, he said just at the conference, he said like 6 different law enforcement officers came up to him to tell him at that conference like what their experiences were. People don't realize that these officials, these park rangers and the DNR, Fish and Wildlife, Game, they already know that these things are out there. And I'm sure they already have a special unit that they're supposed to contact, or
Yeah.
special order of the government that they're supposed to contact when things like this are actually reported. And a lot of people also don't realize that a lot of these state and national parks, there's actually official signs posted out there that if you see a Sasquatch, don't try to feed it, to stay away from it, don't post it to social media. I've shared that where some
Yeah.
people who are in my group have actually shared pictures where these signs are actually official signs in those parks. Don't venture off to certain trails. There's reasons for that. They already know that these things exist. Now, if they're gonna take
Absolutely.
out the time to actually threaten Jessica, a law enforcement officer, what do you think is going to happen to any average person?
Oh yeah. Listen, I've gotten a warning or two before for watching what I say about some of this stuff. Especially doing remote viewing. It's kind of dangerous, to be honest with you. And it's not so much dangerous remote viewing things, but going public with it. Okay, with
It
a lot of the
is.
stuff, because there's a vested interest in keeping it all quiet. Da Roberts has he talks a lot about how he's gone to the LBL, and he was he was kind of like kicked out of restaurants and stuff, talking about it, and businesses,
Mm.
wherever he was, they're like, oh, we
Mm-hmm.
don't like you, people like you in these parts, coming and asking about the beast of LBL, So yeah, there's a
Yes.
vested interest in keeping it quiet because
And
there's a revenue stream coming into these parks, I guess. And I think maybe it's all about the money, or maybe they're just okay with these things feeding on humans. They need to
well, you got to
eat
think
too,
back
right?
to, well, David Pilates missing 411, all the missing and what is it, missing people or whatever. He said that they're not
Yes,
allowed. The parks say that they don't keep a record
they
of
don't.
how many people go missing, but
Yeah,
that's what they tell us. Do they really not keep
exactly.
the record? They're lying. They don't want you to know because what?
Yeah.
Because basically, I think he said that they were going to charge him $6 million for a copy of all those records, and they're going to make it.
It was
What they're
very
doing is making
expensive.
it, yeah, they're making it inconvenient. Oh, most people are not going to pay that money. Let's just throw him a number that is going to be above what he wants to pay. So they're going to tell you
Yeah.
that they keep records of this stuff. They have to keep records of it.
Yeah.
They keep records of it, but they've been told do not make this known to the public. And a lot of the times, these unknown canine or unknown animal killings, you'll hear the first report of it, but you never hear an update on it in the news. What happens later on, because they want to brush that under the rug, but they've got to do damage control. And now, instead of talking about it more and telling what really happened, they're going to make the eyewitnesses look crazy, or they're going to just try to discredit the victim in some type of way by trying to
Yeah.
exploit their past or their history.
And it's a concerted effort, because it's not just law enforcement or the park service or the federal government. It's the media. Okay. Even like local newspapers and local media. They have insiders in there that are there to do I guess discredit or do a disinformation hit piece on people, and to make people look crazy, and to give smear campaigns and do all that. So and that's why a lot of people are hesitant to speak up about these things, and to go public. And plus, we got judges giving gag orders to the entire, the staff of hospitals where the victims are going. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And then, like I said, for the fact that it's still an open case, when if it's an open case, that means that they don't have to tell you anything about it. Now, according
Yeah.
to Martin last night in that case, Amber Miller did tell the, I'm going to have to reach out to him. Maybe he'll tell me behind the scenes. I'm not sure. But uh, she did tell the doctor what had actually attacked her. And what a lot of people
Yeah.
don't realize is that the law enforcement were not the ones, they were not the first responders on the scene in Amber Miller's death. Another passing by motorist seen this woman that was basically nude, like she was naked. And they, in one story, she was found trying to climb a tree to get away from these dogs, and then in another one, she was like
Wow.
just crouched down on the ground, kind of like in a fetal position, but naked and bloody below the tree. But this
With her
pat so
arms half ripped off too, right?
exactly, and
Oh
that's
my
why I said
gosh.
that doesn't make sense. If your arms are dangling by the tendons and muscles of your arms, you cannot. There's no way that you can actually. You can't climb the tree.
I
She's not
mean,
trying to climb a
if you're
tree.
desperate, I mean, the body is capable of doing a lot of weird stuff when you're in danger, when you're in fight or flight. So who knows?
Well,
It is really weird though. That's really weird. And it
well,
doesn't really
it
make sense.
it doesn't make sense. But the ambulance didn't take her to the hospital. A passerby that found her, some guy in a pickup truck, found her and was the one who actually took her to the hospital. So the law enforcement, from what I heard, they weren't able to even get involved in that case until later on. But it's a lot of stuff. And one thing that I thought was interesting was that in the autopsy report, it said that the victim was uncooperative in sharing what really happened to her. This is an
Of
autopsy
course.
report. Like, no, she wasn't uncooperative. You couldn't tell her, no, you saw a bear. She wasn't going along with that, is what I think. She wasn't going to go
Right.
with your narrative. And you're now saying she's uncooperative. So she was like, no, it was. I feel like if I'm her in this moment, it wasn't a bear. I saw a wolf or an upright walking dog on 2 feet. And that's just my belief. There's a bunch of people that believe it was the guy's dogs who um, property that the body was found on.
Wow. Well, I think people are getting really fed up with all the cover-ups, and with all the dodging questions and blaming this on dogs. Imagine all the dogs who've
Mhm.
been blamed for these dogman attacks that have been euthanized and killed for no reason, just to cover up some uh, some paranormal attacks here. These dogmen. So, Bettina, I can't believe this hour has gone by so fast. We are at the end of the show already. So
Okay,
I hope that you will come back and be my guest again, and we're
I
going to talk
will.
about this some more, please. Yes,
Yes.
I would love to have you back on soon because we have probably a million stories that we could talk about and get into.
Well,
So
thank you so much. I'm halfway
yeah,
trying to halfway kind of considering. I almost want to go live and finish it up over there for the people
I
who
know,
might have
right?
questions.
I'll go with you. We can go over your
Oh,
channel or
Jessica,
mine.
thank you for putting my channel up there. Y'all, Jessica's got my channel up on the screen right now. Cryptonormal Encounters with B Moss. That's my YouTube channel. If y'all want to go over and subscribe, there's plenty of interviews for y'all to check out. The group is under the same name, Cryptonormal Encounters with B Moss on Facebook. Check it out. Let me know what y'all think. I do have some more great eyewitnesses. Tim Kumbo Baker has been on the show. Lance Hightower of Monster 911, formerly Cryptid Brothers Investigations. Jody Cook, North American Dogman Project. Nick Valente has been guest. Barton Nunley has co-hosted with me on several. So y'all, I got a lot of stuff. Jessica's gonna be a guest on my show. My show is longer. It's like an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, just 2.5 hours at the most, and then I get tired after that. So, but they keep their show strict here at an hour. So y'all
It is
just
so fast. Yeah.
but it is. There's so much more to tell because there's a lot when it comes to these cryptids. But I really want to thank each and every one of you who showed up to listen tonight, and thank you, Jessica, for having me on your show tonight. I really appreciate that. And I'm gonna
Well,
contact you later on too, so we can keep talking about this. Because I got to get you on
oh
my
yeah.
show as well.
Oh, for sure. We're planning on it. Absolutely. Well, I thank you for sharing your story with us. I know it's not easy recounting that story. It's got to be scary. So I just appreciate it. And I think you're awesome, Bettina. And thank you so much for being here tonight. And
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
we're going to continue this conversation in the future. Okay.
Yes, thank
All
you so much.
right.
I'm excited.
Okay. Well, listen, have a great night, Bettina. And we'll be talking to you again soon. Okay.
All
Thank
right, thank
you.
you. Have a
Okay.
good night,
Bye.
everyone.
All right. Bye. All right, Bettina is awesome, y'all. If y'all, yeah, don't forget, right after this show, you can join the After Hours crew. They're going to take you on an incredible journey for the next 3 hours tomorrow night on Off the Trail. My guest is Marty Argentino, and we're going to be talking about a paranormal deep dive into local haunts and Sasquatch activity around Florida. I can't wait to see y'all there. But for now, I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I am headed off the trail, and I will see you guys tomorrow night. Thank you for being here. Bye, y'all.